read your thoughts. From the future.
The movies of
1985.
Hello, and welcome to week 32 of the movies of 1985. That's Tuesday the 6th of August to Monday the 12th of August, 1985. My name is Jason Hutchins. I'm stuck in the year 1985. So what I do every week is I use a bingo machine to select a random number that helps me find a video to watch that I rent from a local video store here in Perth, Western Australia. So without further ado, I think it's time to spin the machine. Oh, hang on. The ball wasn't taking its malfunctioning. It's number 3. So we had number 5 last week. Commando, the small single-digit numbers are finally coming out. So number 3, let me just go over to the spreadsheet and see what it is. Number 3 is Lost in America. I can't say I know this one. It can be rented on Prime, Apple or Google if you're living in the modern age. But here in 1985, I am going to go and rent it from Galaxy Video in Como, which means a bus trip. I'll be back in a while, later on this afternoon probably. But while I'm doing that, I'll flick on the TV and you can watch an ad.
They said you'd never make it. We've seen you guys before. No one's ever gonna take it. It stays bolted to the floor. They said you'd never make it, but you dreamed of other things. You were sailing for Australia with a boat that sails on wings. They said you'd never make it, but you finally came through. For all of you who made it, this one's made for you. Made for you. This one's made for you. You've made it through, and this one's made for you.
Let's have a look. Let's have a look. I'm back from the video store. I've got the video cassette cover. So it has a bit of a desert theme. If you look at the cover, we're in the middle of the American desert there, looking very much like we're returning to Silverado or Pale Rider. In the middle of the middle of the video cassette, there's the title, Lost in America. Albert Brooks and Julie Hassati, I think it is, the 2 stars of the movie. Albert Brooks also wrote and directed the movie. He's familiar from The Simpsons, I think. He's been in The Simpsons and a bit of a comedian, I think. But at the bottom of the front cover, there's a photograph of, the desert landscape, and then we see this man and a woman in their business attire sticking their heads in the sand like ostriches are supposed to do. So that's the cover. Turning over to the back, there's a photograph of the 2 of them in a motel, like a love motel or something, and also gathering around the blackjack table or roulette table in a casino. And then a quote from Roger Ebert, "More big laughs than any other film this year," which is a bit of a big claim given that we've had movies such as Clue. And the blurb reads like a thesis. I don't think I'll read all of it, but it starts, "Goodbye rat race, hello human race. Died in the 3-piece yuppie David Howard is dropping out now. It's not like David to act so impulsively. He's put in 8 long years at a big-time ad agency, enduring the corporate pecking order, the 1 martini too many lunches." He's enduring that? "And the late-night agency powwows. David hoped to land a senior VP slot. Instead, all he got was a pat on the back and a transfer to New York. I can get a transfer for free at the bus stop. protests, David. What a bummer. And it goes on. So I think this is about two corporate slaves dropping out and cruising America in a Winnebago, as far as I can work out. But let's find out by watching Lost in America. So let's press play on tape, turn down the lights, and watch the movie.
You're just nervous about tomorrow. You'll get the promotion, we'll move into the new house, and we'll be happy. Okay?
You should hear your voice. It just filled this room with excitement.
This is David and Linda Howard. They're happily married,
I want to have sex with you right here. Right now, right here.
and they're about to have a day
This is it.
they'll remember the rest of their lives.
David, you're fired. Fired? Oh, I'm fired!
Now, they're going to drop out
We have to touch Indians. We have to see the mountains and the prairies and the whole rest of that song.
set out to find the American dream.
Well, the movie you're basing your whole life on, Easy Rider, they had no nest egg.
They had a giant nest egg. They had all this cocaine.
And wind up lost in America.
To America, look out. Here we come.
Where do you want to go?
I don't know.
Head out on the highway.
Do you have a reservation? Well, I just dropped out of society. I kind of live moment to moment. I really don't do reservation things anymore.
What do you think?
I think if Liberace had children, this would be their room.
Looking for adventure and whatever comes our way.
How much is left of the nest egg?
Nothing. Well, give or take 1,000.
Give or take 1,000. As the boldest experiment in advertising history, you give us our money back.
We're finished talking.
Yeah, darling, go make it happen. Take the world in a loving embrace.
Don't get in that car! Stop it! I've lost a woman. A whole woman.
Born to be wild.
That's not funny.
Born to be wild.
Any high-paying jobs in the immediate area? You wouldn't be interested in it. Well, you don't know me. I might love it. What is it?
Walk your bike. I'm warning you, walk your bike.
Dumb Brillo pad, fathead.
Come on, bow! Here we go. Hey!
I hate like you.
Kill the child!
The Geffen Company presents Albert Brooks and Julie Haggerty, Lost in America.
Great movie. You gotta see it. It's historic.
Well, that was a fun movie. I really liked that one. Now, I must apologise, first off the bat, for this podcast coming out a little bit later than usual this week, and it's because I got sick. I got sick while we were watching the movie just then. I've actually taken a break of about 5 days, and that will explain why the podcast was put out a bit later than normal. So excuse me if I cough a bit. I am hopefully on the mend, but I'm still under the weather somewhat. Now, this movie was right up my alley. It's an Albert Brooks movie. It's got a very dry wit about it. And it really, I think I'm at the right point in my life for this movie to talk to me, I suppose. But what I'll do is I'll go through the first 20 minutes just to give you a bit of a setup for what the movie is all about. So we fade into the exterior of a house looking like it's in California with a sold sign out the front in the twilight. And we cut to the interior of the house. We see a lot of boxes. The old owners are packing up. They're about to move out. They've sold their house. And we hear a radio. A radio is on and we hear the radio interview as the camera slowly moves around the house. Now, this was a real radio interview on the Larry King show between Larry King and Rex Reed, who was film critic with the New York Post, and they're talking about movies. This is a really interesting way to start the movie because their conversation is about how the film critic prefers to be by himself in a screening room when he's watching a movie. And Larry King asks, well, what about comedies? Like Mel Brooks has told him before, a comedy needs an audience. And Rex Reed says, well, Not me. I'd still prefer to watch a comedy by myself. If it's funny, I'll laugh. I don't need people around me telling me when I should be laughing. And this, in a way, like putting this right at the beginning of a comedy, is kind of like putting a quote at the beginning of a book. You're sort of declaring your intent, aren't you, by putting this at the beginning? I thought it was very, very clever. And this was a good way of covering those opening credits, which all those 80s movies have, because we're setting the scene by seeing that there's this house that has just been sold, and we are listening to this statement of intent. It's a comedy. It's a smart comedy. You don't need to be told about when to laugh. So it's a great statement of purpose. Anyway, eventually at the end of the credits, just as they're starting to discuss the movie The Mountainhead, based on the book by Ayn Rand, the camera moves into the bedroom and we see a couple in bed. Now there's Albert Brooks. He wrote and directed this movie. He also plays the lead character by the name of David, and he's lying next to his wife Linda. That's Julie Haggerty, known from the movie Flying High, which is known as Aeroplane in America, but was known as Flying High in Australia. And they have a conversation about whether they're doing the right thing by selling their house, because they are upsizing. They are going to buy a really expensive house. He's climbing the career ladder at work. The house that they're going to move into is $450,000. It's like a mansion. And, in 1985 dollars at least. He's climbing the corporate ladder. He's planning to go into the office tomorrow for a promotion, but he's a bit worried about this. Everyone, his wife and his friends, have all told him that it's a shoo-in, but he's still a bit worried about it. He's a little bit like Larry David in a way, Albert Brooks, just his personality. Now, he has a discussion with his wife about this, and his wife says, well, I think we're being a bit too responsible. And he gets angry about that because he takes it as meaning getting a bit too old and stodgy and set in your ways. Really, he's looking back towards his youth. And I guess these people are sort of probably in their mid-30s. So they're sort of on that cusp of settling down and everything. It turns out the next day that Linda is a bit nervous about it as well, because the next day David is rehearsing his speech in front of the bathroom mirror, but Linda wants to go and choose out tiles for their new house. David doesn't want to do that, of course. He's so nervous about his promotion meeting with his boss that he goes off to work. Linda goes into her work and she discusses with a co-worker about the tile that she has chosen out, which is classic 1985. She's gone for the burnt orange colour. But she also confesses to her co-worker that she thinks she will hate this house because it's just a preview of the next 10 years of their lives where nothing is going to change and life will just be passing them by. She says as well to her co-worker that promotions don't change anything. You always think they will, but they never do. And this is kind of the hedonic treadmill, isn't it? It's this idea that you get to the next level, but then that becomes normal, and then you don't feel any different to what you were at the level further down the ladder. And this super, super appeals to me. So it's why it was just the right comedy for me, because it's exactly how I felt about some stages of my life as well. Anyway, David back in his office is still about climbing the corporate ladder. So he's on the phone to his Mercedes dealer, a guy by the name of Hans. Now, Hans, you never see him, you only hear him on the phone, and he's voice acted by the same actor, Albert Brooks. He's sort of doing one of his accents, and he's known for his accents because he, of course, appeared on The Simpsons in some guest roles. He's often confused with James L. Brooks, who was known for The Simpsons as well. James L. Brooks does a cameo in this movie. They all know each other. All of these people who ended up on The Simpsons, they've all worked together. Anyway, the Mercedes dealer, he's talking about buying a Mercedes for $44,000, of course, a completely luxury item at the time. And he's just confirming that he doesn't have to pay for any extras. And the Mercedes dealer says, well, no, there's no extras apart from if you want genuine leather instead of Mercedes leather, which is their word for vinyl. When, and basically this movie is composed of all of these little vignettes, these sequences that are like comedy skits. So, and they're all very funny, but in this dry way. So anyway, the secretary buzzes to say it's time for his meeting with the boss, and he walks through the offices. Now, he's an advertising executive. He's working in a very well-known advertising firm in California. He's very high up. He's about to get promoted to vice president or something like that. It's quite interesting to see what an office looked like in 1985 because nobody has a computer on their desk. They all just have their inbox and their telephone and whatever else, all of their little executive ornaments or executive toys on their desk. So he walks in to talk to his boss, Paul, but then another guy's in the office. It's Brad from New York, and Brad has just landed the Ford contract, and he's asked Paul for his best man, and Paul suggested David. So now David, instead of being promoted, he's being asked to move sideways to go and help Brad in New York on the Ford contract, upending his life. Obviously, he's not going to get to move into his new house that he's just bought with his wife. And he goes off. He has a big meltdown, ending up with Paul firing David and calling security. And this sets everything in motion. So that's the first 20 minutes. What happens, of course, is David then goes to Linda and decides that, let's just ditch everything in. Let's spend all of our savings on a big motorhome and let's go on a trip across America to go and buy a cheap house somewhere out in the middle of nowhere and just live the life that we wanted to live when we talked about our future when we were back in college. We've got enough money now to do it, so let's just go and do it. And they decide to do that. And that's basically where this movie takes off. It's a road trip. It's basically a retelling of Easy Rider. That's the inspiration for this movie from the point of view of a couple of mid-1980s yuppies. And it's quite good. I really recommend it. I am going to give this movie 4 stars and recommend it as a Mintox. I think it would appeal to a lot of my friends as well. So Albert Brooks co-wrote this movie with Monica Johnson. They wrote the movie together while driving across the country, taking a voice recorder with them just to capture all of those little moments that happen on a road trip. And then the movie was filmed pretty much like a road trip as well. It was just all filmed in sequence, and they filmed it in a lot of locations across the country. And I think a lot of people thought that most of the movie was ad-libbed, but it wasn't. It was very tightly scripted. But because it was based on reality like that, a lot of the scenes in the movie do come across as very natural, the way that they were written. So a lot of people did think they were improvised. One of the film's most memorable moments features Gary Marshall as a casino manager because, of course, what happens is one of their first stops for driving down from California is Las Vegas, where they plan to be officially married, David and Linda. And something happens there. It turns out Linda's a bit of a gambling addict, and they have their whole nest egg, their whole fortune, and she blows it all in the casinos. But yeah, the scene where David, as the advertising executive, is trying to use his business skills to talk the casino manager into giving them a refund for their gambling losses is quite funny indeed, especially when Gary Marshall as the casino manager deadpans, "I don't think you understand the concept of gambling." So a lot of this movie was filmed in a real casino, the old Desert Inn Casino in Las Vegas. And they just filmed it while actual casino customers were going on and going about their gambling, using high-speed film and basic lighting allowed them to shoot incognito in a way, so that it didn't disrupt the regular casino operations. So that makes it quite interesting as well. And yeah, so this movie, Lost in America, is really showing what happens when people who are in a very comfortable stage of their lives try to escape it because they realize that their lives haven't turned out the way that they'd wanted them to turn out back when they were in college. But it turns out, of course, that they are completely unprepared for the real world. They've kind of lost touch with the real world in a way, and they end up just desperately wanting to have their old problems back, their old first world problems that seemed so bad at the time, but in retrospect, you know, they were living the life of luxury, weren't they? Anyway, that's Lost in America. I really recommend that you see it. But now...
I'm driving along and I'm just singing my song. I'm in a news-free zone.
Welcome to the News-Free Zone, everybody. It's that time of the podcast where we look back at the news from 40 years ago so that we don't have to pay attention to the news from 2025. Well, that's what I normally say, but this week I do have to mention some sad news because David Stratton, the film critic and host of At the Movies and The Movie Show, along with Margaret Pomerantz, he has passed away at the age of 85 this week. Now, David and Margaret started The Movie Show on SBS in 1986, just 1 year from now, and they were doing movie reviews on television right up until 2014. So a good almost 35-year career. And David's family have said that please celebrate his life this week by either watching your favourite movie or his favourite movie, which is Singing in the Rain with Gene Kelly. Now, this week in 1985 marked the 40th anniversary of Hiroshima, the bombing of Japan that ended the Second World War by Americans. Now, that was August the 6th, 1945. So, of course, this week in 2025, it's the 80th anniversary of that. Now, Mikhail Gorbachev of the Soviet Union announced a unilateral nuclear testing moratorium to coincide with that 40th anniversary. President Ronald Reagan of America responded skeptically to that and labelled it a propaganda ploy. But yeah, interesting that some things never change, isn't it? Also this week, Tim Burton had his directorial debut. Now, I just watched Beetlejuice again the other day with my kids. Tim Burton I sort of run hot and cold on, so there's some of his movies that I really like and some that I don't like at all. One that I've never seen and which is not on my list was his first movie from 1985, which was Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Not something that I've ever really wanted to watch, but he collaborated with Danny Elfman. Danny Elfman scored his very first movie with Pee-wee's Big Adventure. So this launched two of Hollywood's big careers. Now, also this week in 1985, Real Genius came out. That starred Val Kilmer as a slacker at a university in America that maybe could have been MIT or maybe could have been Caltech. I'm not too sure. That one is on my list and hopefully it will come up soon. Also, My Science Project came out this week, which was Disney's take on the teen genius genre, which was quite popular at that time. And you could pair those two up with Weird Science, which was out just the other week, wasn't it? They're all similar in terms of their plot. Now, rounding out this week, or Super Friday as they called it, because all of these movies came out on the same day, was Summer Rental, which was one of John Candy's last movies, I think. It was one of 4 films he appeared in during the summer of 1985, and it's not one that's on my list either. But you probably wouldn't be surprised to know I've only selected 52 movies from 1985 to watch out of about 2,000 movies that were released this year all around the world. Also in this week in 1985, Australia experienced a big business consolidation when Coles and Myer merged to become Coles Myer Limited. That was a $918 million merger. One of the largest, Coles Myer would become one of the largest corporations in the country with over 2,900 stores. And finally, the last piece of news from this week in 1985, ending with one of aviation's darkest moments. Now, if you've been listening to this podcast, you would realise that air travel was not so safe in the mid-80s. There were a ton of airline disasters, and another one happened this week in Japan, where Japan Airlines Flight 123 crashed into Mount Osotaka in Japan, killing 520 people in the deadliest single aircraft accident in history. So it's absolutely crazy because we seem to have these every other week. Airline travel is so much safer in 2025 than it was in 1985, even though the actual technology hasn't changed a hell of a lot, has it? Because the aeroplanes are very similar to what they were back then. Anyway, let's go over now to Usenet, which is 1985's version of social media. I read Usenet using olduse.net, which allows you to read Usenet on a 40-year delay. Now, on net.sf lovers, science fiction lovers, Jeff Rogers posted a question titled :left curved bracket, which of course is a smiley face. Now, I've been reading Usenet from 1985 all year, and this is probably one of the first smiley faces I've seen. I think maybe there was one earlier in the year, but they certainly aren't used very often. And he was asking, what the hell is this symbol? I've picked up most of the slang and jargon used on Usenet, but this one still eludes me. Can somebody explain to me the precise meaning of :right curved bracket? Isn't that interesting? So even though this smiley face had been proposed back in September 1982 by Scott Folman, a computer scientist at CMU in the United States, it was very rarely used right up until about now. Like every now and again, someone throws one of them in, but it's not, I remember when I was reading Usenet in the 90s at university, they were peppered all over the place, smiley faces. You very quickly learned what they are because everyone used them all the time, but back in 1985, they were still a rarity. Now, over on net.physics, Gary Bucholitz, I can't pronounce his name, he asked about these weird gravitational effects, which he experienced firsthand at Lake Delton in Wisconsin, where he traveled up the mountain to a little cabin where a tour guide took you around and asked you to walk through the cabin, and it was impossible to maintain even footing. And apparently he was told that there was a very dense meteorite embedded in a nearby mountain which messed with the force of gravity. Now, there were some follow-ups to his post because he was quite credulous about this. He said it can't have been a hoax because I checked the cabin very carefully. There was nothing suspicious about it. And I experienced, stumbling around, walking across the floor of the cabin. So he thought it was true. Someone followed up with an analysis of just how dense this meteorite would have to have been, which of course was impossible. But these days, in 2025 at least, you can just go on Wikipedia and search this up. And this spot was called the Wonder Spot. It closed in 2006, but it was operated as a tourist attraction, and it was just a hoax based on optical illusions. So the cabin did not have an even floor at all, but it was built in a way that it was hard to detect that it didn't, I suppose. Over on net.movies, Peter De Silva. Now, Peter De Silva signs himself off as the weird Australian or something like that. So I did a bit of a follow-up about him. So he had spent some time in Australia at one of the universities in Australia, although he was American himself. But he posted on net.movies about an exceptional video that he had seen on MTV, which used incredible pencil animation. He said he caught the end of it one day and he's keeping an eye out for it, but he doesn't watch MTV very often. But he is a big animation fan. He'd like to know what's the video called, what's the group that sings the song, and who did the animation. And of course, these days we all know it was a-ha doing Take On Me, my wife's favourite song of all time. But it has just been aired for the first time this week by MTV in the US. So there you go. Now that's all of the news I've got for this week. So just remember, until next week, that's 5 stars from me.
I'm singing in the rain, just singing in the rain. What a glorious feeling, I'm happy again. I'm laughing at clouds so dark up above. The sun's in my heart and I'm ready for love. Let the stormy clouds chase everyone from the place. Come on with the rain, I've a smile on my face. I'll walk down the lane with a happy refrain, just singing in